just keeping that freaking wrecking ball away from that jail until, you know, until he's out of office.
I mean, we had a commissioner sitting here who, they don't even communicate with him. He wasn't even invited to the last meeting.
I know.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what maybe we can do, sort of the low-hanging fruit while we try to build a groundswell, you know, to help support this. Has anybody in the room talked to the Pennsylvania Historical Museum Commission yet? Okay, I'm going to talk to them next.
I can't say not yet. They are aware.
They're aware. They're very much aware. They sent me the information a couple times. We talked about it. I had a meeting with them, and the county commissioners had requested a grant, and so we were talking generally about what's going on in the county, and the prison came up as sort of why would we work on that when we haven't dealt with this yet kind of conversation. So I know that they're aware, but let me talk to them and see the sort of the for this room conversation that. It sounds like there's nothing that we can make them do from a state level, but a letter from the state telling them what they should do might sort of slow things down a little bit, might at least make them defend why they don't have to do that, if they, you know, or do it, or, you know, suggest, like, let's have a meeting, let's all talk about this, and, you know, oh, that won't get scheduled until next month, and then we'll have to, you know, form committees, and the committees will, you know, I think that we can very strategically, you know, work with them to try to get some things to happen that might take some time. And they may or may not work, but they might at least take a few time.
Or if nothing else, a letter from the state suggesting, it sort of says the message too that there's other eyes on this other than,
Absolutely.
Right now they can say, okay, there's eyes on it, but it's a small group of, you know, a dozen people.
Right.
Where now they'll say, oh, there is another set of eyes sort of looking on what's going on.
Yeah, and maybe what we can do, I don't know if I should be thinking out loud on this term, but this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna talk to the PHMC. I'm gonna ask them to write a letter to the county commissioners suggesting that, you know, they've heard there's concern in the community, you know, we should probably, you know, could they come to Sunbury and see the property and we have a convening? And then maybe we can get the commissioner that was here tonight to sort of follow up on that and say, let's, you know, Brian wants to come to Sunbury, when can we meet with him? And, you know, sort of maybe he can just help us get a response to that letter. Because if he writes the letter and nothing happens, you know, I don't really know what we can do. We can't really make them do anything at this point, but they're elected officials. And again, they might not care anymore, it sounds like, because they might not be running anymore. But, you know, in theory, they should care if the community has things to say.
I'd like to say too that there was a response. I mean, honestly, the day after the fire, they were talking demolition.
Yeah.
Like, that came up immediately. And, you know, I think that this larger conversation, this group coming about, really did change the course of that.
That has, yeah.
But
it's
that
let
was
them
false.
But that was
think
one person
That was
immediately
one
after.
person that said, let's demolish the place and build a brand new one and all that.
But if no
That
one
was
is-
him, the guy that's not running and not coming back.
And the guy who's not gonna even be living in Northumberland County come next year, he's gonna have his butt in Florida, could care less what that's gonna do to all of our taxes.
But he's the one who's pushing to have it demolished and to not reutilize the property and to, wash his hands of it basically.
Yeah.
But, you know, so I think that though the 1,500 people or whatever that joined the site, though, I think that groundswell really made
It's
him
got them thinking.
stop.
Yeah.
Slowed it down, made him
Right.
reconsider. Well, maybe it's going to be a little bit more of a backlash than
Yeah.
expected.
So I think that from what I can do to follow up is talk to PHMC, try to get a letter. I can write a letter too, but most people don't take me as seriously as a state agency. We're my executive director. I mean, our organization, we're a nonprofit, so we're not the state, you know. The state, a letter from the state usually makes them be like, ooh, you know, and it'll either get them mad, it'll either fire them up, or it'll get them thinking maybe. So anybody opposed to that, to me doing that, while you're working on thinking about if you have an umbrella nonprofit, thinking about how you're going to grow your support, right?
And
Is
the
that-
petition, I think,
Yeah.
too, right? Get as many signatures.
What if more history prior to prison came to knowledge, and that it was significant as well as the prison? Would that even be more of a tool to help our cause?
Tell me more about that. You mean sort of the history of
Like-
Sunbury in general? Or,
Like what was there before? What was like the surrounding area? Was there a significant building before that was torn down? The prison was placed there. Why was the prison placed there?
There wasn't anything there before the prison was built there.
I
That's the fifth prison. That was the fifth prison that was in Sunbury. There wasn't any, in history of my knowledge, there was none, there was land that the county acquired. I mean, as far as other significant buildings, close to there would be the William Wolverton House and the house across the street, which is, the Clement House, which is across the street. So you have several historic, significant buildings there, but to my knowledge, there wasn't anything. I mean, that prison was built there because of the other areas in town wasn't, they weren't built correctly, or they weren't feasible, or, and then that prison was built, so.
I think that from a regulatory point of view, as far as, again, what we can make them do or any of that, the prior history doesn't really have any relevance except building context of what's Sunbury about, why is this place important, a little bit. But as far as you engaging the public and sort of getting them to remember why they care about their community and why, what this, in that sense, from sort of a public relations in the community, the stories might be really important, whatever those stories are.
Maybe we could have an alumni reunion and seek donations from everybody that's been through the prison.
That's an approach that I like that. Bring them all
I
back
will
to
come.
town.
I will come.
We could have a where are they
A lot of people I know have been through there.
now? See where they've come and gone.
And I think another thing that one of our, she's not here tonight, but she had ancestry as far as Molly McGuire's, and one of the other suggestions was to contact the however you say that, the thank you. Yeah, council and the museum, and see if any of them would like to step up and also help us,
It can't hurt to ask. I mean, some groups haven't yet sort of embraced negative history. Some, the racism and hangings and different types of things. Not everybody's willing to sort of celebrate that yet, but some groups are ready to sort of say this is important to our heritage, even though it's negative. So let's talk about it. So
That hanging drew 8,000 people on that property.
we could have a mock hanging as a fundraiser.
Just put a gallows on it.
Can we hang Squawky
We have a reenactment.
Should have said his name.
I didn't say.
Seeking volunteers. No, that would be we gotta be careful.
Teasing.
Though, right? Yeah. 8,000 people though, and that would be a heck of a.
Well, actually, back in the day, the gallows were right outside, right back here is where the gallows were, and where they would they put the basket of fruit and all that stuff, and they would help them as they walked down the pillory.
So there's some cool, I mean, again, you could play with the stories, somehow to build interest in the effort.
Otherwise, it ends up being a plaque that says, here was Northumberland County Prison.
I call them,
Built, and
here's
then-
what you missed plaques. Yeah, here's what you missed.
Yeah.
It's not here anymore. Too bad you're too late.
We do have one of the market streets, that's not
Yeah.
happening here yet.
So, what else? Does anybody else have questions or things that we should talk about? I mean, I think, so the reality is this is a big, it's a big thing. It's not going to be an easy one, so it's going to take some work and it's going to take some time. But there's things we can start doing to start seeing.
Can I just throw one little synopsis on here?
Sure,
The boy pissed the dog off the batteries with the
it's possible.
Well, I've been
Now
nice.
Larry's gonna come through that fence and bite it.
He does whatever he wants to. So what do you do? So, I mean, all I've done is
I
try
would
to
say
talk
not
about it
agitating more,
by doing what?
just overpowering yourself.
Overpowering myself?
No, not you, but the group as a group,
The letter, you mean?
Like, just like the stuff that gets put on Facebook, he has people that read that and report it.
I haven't said anything negative.
No, you haven't, but there's
And
other
I've asked
people.
the people in the commit, I've asked people to come on that page, and I have deleted people.
Right.
True, yeah, I know, and you can, my quote in the Shamokin newspaper was, you get more with sugar than you do with vinegar. I've said that all along. And I have been kind, and I haven't, I mean, in these
And
walls.
if they
I'm
would
like-
follow your lead, Vicky,
Mhm.
I think it would be a lot better.
I
Right.
think the key is to, and you wanna, I think, make sure people understand, this is not everyone's gonna do what you say, but I think you're exactly right, that it's important to show that people care about their history and people care about the downtown economy. You know, that they, it's not about, I don't like this guy, I don't like what he's doing, I think he needs to be stopped. It's not about that. It's about, this is important in our history, this is important in our town. If this is gone, here's, you know, here's what we lose, and
I don't think
you
a
know.
letter coming from Harrisburg saying.
I don't
think that's.
And it's gonna be all the
Because
commissioners
honestly,
front
we
page.
know what his personality is. His personality is,
All right.
Yeah,
that's his personality.
he'll shred it.
So, again,
Yeah.
I have done everything, I have followed the chain of command all the way through. And then I hit a wall, so then I involved Linda. Linda called, and then, you know, so we're doing this dancing thing. I still just, I mean, Rick has, unfortunately, I have one commissioner who's been great. I mean, I can text, Rick gave me, I mean, he called me on a Saturday and talked to me for 2 hours, and while he was waiting to go to a funeral. You know, so he has done, but he doesn't, he has no, they don't listen to him.
Yeah.
But at least we do have somebody who is running again, that's showing up, and does have a vested interest in this. So at least we do have Rick on our side.
Maybe we should go underground.
But for all of what you said about the Facebook site,
Yeah.
okay, now, Vicky is very good at removing those negative comments and blocking people. So if Mr. Clausy has people staking out that site, they're seeing that there might be a negative comment, but if they're going out there checking, they've also noticing that those comments are being removed.
Or I go on and say, please,
Right,
let's keep the
so,
issue of
you
this.
know,
One of it
you know, so,
Yeah.
and anybody that has any brains or anything knows that any of those sites, you always get some of those comments and people. I mean, there was stuff all over about the Northumberland County yard sale site the other day, so it was, you
Yeah,
know, so,
I saw that.
Right, and
You
I agree, and I do, that's what I've been
You know,
trying to do, is keep it, you know,
I mean,
In-house.
you just have
What I
that.
meant about underground was in-house. You got my email, you got everybody else's email.
right,
If we're
right.
working with email, stay off that multimedia crap because that's for the whole world to see.
But anything
Yeah.
you put in writing is out there for everybody. Somebody
Yeah.
inadvertently forwards it, just looking at this message,
Just gotta be
forgetting
careful.
about what's below it or whatever. Just, if you really want to be careful, anything you type and send to the group, even if it's meant to be in-house, if you can't say it out loud, don't say
Don't
it,
put it.
because it's gonna leak.
If you don't want it on the
If you-
front page of the paper, don't put it in writing.
Just make sure you,
We can
yeah.
have more meetings when we have critical things that need to be discussed than just use the email as a, oh, hey, time for a meeting again. Okay, we're gonna discuss certain things. We need you to be there and stay
I
off the multimedia stuff. Because if he's got people monitoring, you know what a time it is, and how he does a
Well,
tirade
and
when he
it
gets
can be
upset.
seen, not everybody's on email, and not everybody, a lot of people that care aren't, or you're gonna miss them. You know, we've done this before where we've been at a meeting and they talk about, they circulate a list and say, okay, everyone write down your email. And I could just see people sort of looking around, and I said, everyone who's not on email every day, raise your hand, and half the room wasn't.
And
So
then
you,
you have the
it's
public
important to have
listings
the
in the
public
paper.
meetings, because
We're
you're
having a
missing people.
meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
You can post that, that's
Yeah.
blah, that's not the script.
You don't
Nobody
wanna
knows
miss
what you're
people.
doing other than having
Right.
a meeting.
Well, I do want to say that I would not be here if I didn't think that this group is professional.
Right, great, good. And that's taken some work to edit it so that it stays that way.
Oh, yes.
So
So
that
I think
editing
that
is-
I think this committee has conducted itself and very appreciative for everything that they've done. And so I guess I can say keep up with it.
The Historical Society, do they have a 501(c)(3)? And I'm willing to bet that that Irish,
Yeah, then,
so I think, right, and so I'm thinking in my mind right now is, I think what we need to do is for us to get one, because I am already a board of a 501(c)(3) that's currently not active, And rather than dissolve it, we put it in hibernation status with the state because of it being so hard.
So much work.
Right.
Yeah.
That is a lot.
That maybe what we need to do is develop a plan on how we are going to try and raise funds, find ownership, and maybe try to get the Historical Society or this Irish to because to my mind, it would be easy with theirs for us to fall under their umbrella. That they wouldn't have to jump through loops to maintain their 501(c)(3 with adding that one as a cause, because they are similar causes to start with. Am I on the right track with that train of thought?
I don't know the Historical Society and
Right,
their
but I-
mission, but
right, but I
generally
mean,
speaking, it makes
Broad
sense that you
spectrum.
just form a preservation committee or a Save the Prison committee
You
or
know, if
something.
we sort of let them know that, you know what, we don't expect you to do anything other than let us use your, you know.
Well, and what you have to do with that, I think, is probably reassure them that, you know, the responsibility there, I'll give you an example. So we sometimes act as a 501(c)(3 for organizations that don't have their own, we do occasionally, but right now, we are managing a grant for they just weren't old enough. They've been in existence 2 or 3 years, and they had to be in existence 5 years or something to apply for the grant. So we applied, we were the applicant for the grant as a partner with them. And I have to admit, like, I don't know that they're reflecting on us very well right now, because the project is delayed, and, you know, part of that's probably I haven't been managing it the way I should be. But it's also, you know, we need to be able to get grants in the future. Like, we need them to perform on this grant. So you just have to be able to give the Historical
Then we're gonna
Society,
have to show them.
you have to show them that, look, we have the match in hand, and
We
so
have to
we're gonna
make
go
them
for
warm and
this,
fuzzy.
or you just need to reassure them that you're gonna be professional and you're not gonna drag them through the mud.
Well, I will tell you that I am not the person to do that.
Make that ask.
Because I was ripped a new one, but good, by the president. Because I made a statement in the newspaper that I was a member of the Historical Society. And they took that as that I was speaking on behalf of the Historical Society when the article came out. I am a member, and I was a sustaining member. However, after being ripped a new one and screamed at, they aren't getting my check anymore. So I'm not the person to make that phone call, because I didn't, you know, I was a member, I could say that. And it was not, I did not come across as if I was speaking on their behalf. Okay, so I'm just to warn you, I'm not the person to go to court. So if there's somebody in here that wants to take that,
Well, if
please.
that's their mentality, I don't, because
I'm
I
telling you,
remember
it's
that
tough.
statement, you know? And if they're reading something into that, I don't know that.
I'm just saying, I'm not saying that necessarily it has to be them, but I'm thinking that
I'm just
type
letting
of
you- they're a tough
organization.
group. They're a tough group, I'm
You
warning
know,
you.
that type of
And so,
organization.
and they know that my name is attached to this.
But that is a very good point, and I wish I would have thought to bring, we have a little publication that we put together called How to Protect and Preserve Historic Places in Atherton, and I forgot to bring copies, but it's available on our website. I can send you the link. But one thing that a lot of people don't realize is that, like she said, she's not the one to talk to the Historical Society. The county commissioners are not returning her phone calls. She can still be the rallier, but someone else might need to be the voice of the organization. You know, it might be that they're just doing this to you now, regardless of how valid what you have to say is, they're not gonna hear it. So, you know, among yourselves, you might need to form a sort of communications subcommittee or declare a public relations person or a spokesperson, because they might not, as much as she might be the energizer and the rallier, she might not be the voice that needs to be heard. And it's really, to your credibility as an organization, it's sort of important that you kind of recognize that, even if you don't like it, even if they should listen to her. If they're not going to, they're not going to, and you might not be able to change that. So you might need to assign a different spokesperson. What other questions? Okay.
I have a question, because I'm kind of coming in this, in the middle here. Do you guys have a plan, regardless of all the stumbling blocks with the county commissioners, forget them a second, but do you have a plan exactly of how you want to save this prison and what you want to do with it? Is it laid out in writing? Because even if you would go after your own 501(c), you need to have that with the state. So my suggestion would be, as an outsider coming in, is getting that plan laid out. And then you have a very valid point. Getting someone to go before the commissioners, whether it's in their meeting or what have you, and say, hey, here's this group of people that are fighting to save this prison, to fighting to save history in Sunbury. This is what we want to do. I mean, I really think any business that starts has to have a business plan.
And we have, the committee met one meeting. Okay, what happened, when we have a crisis, the first time we had a public meeting, we packed SRI. And then the next meeting,
There were 8 of us.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, and then there was nobody. Okay, so until we started getting, that I kept
Right.
returning emails to everyone saying, hey, be here, the last article that came out in the newspaper. So we sat down and we came up with, what could we do in that space? Okay, but we're sort of chasing our tail, so to speak.
And I hear what you're
But
saying.
we do, we have to come up with, because we can't go to the historical society so much.
Exactly.
Because they're gonna say, well, what's your plan? Well, how are you
Right.
gonna do this? Where's the money coming from this? All of that. Absolutely, we need to come up with a plan. That might change 2 days after that, but at least we have something. Because the biggest thing is dollar signs, that's the biggest thing. And whoever we're under, they're gonna be making sure that we're held accountable for them. I know, I don't got millions of dollars.
And that's tricky, that's sort of a chicken or the egg thing, because we do have to have a plan, but we also need to have a feasible plan.
Right.
And so we might have to have a phased plan and/or options,
Well, and the
that's-
feasibility study was a fantastic idea if they could get that pushed through.
Yeah, I think that sort of, I think what we probably ought to be saying is, what we want is that to be the next step, is that we recognize that there are a range of possibilities and there are also a range of limitations, and so
Right.
let's start mapping that out. And at the, again, we can sort of facilitate this at the community level. We don't have to pay $30,000 to get a consultant in yet. We can do some narrowing first, and then if we have a plan, a preferred alternative or whatever, then maybe it's time to sort of really test that option. So I think that might be a good next step, is to have somebody, maybe it's the city, maybe it's the county commissioners, maybe this committee needs to go to the city, and then the city needs to go to the commissioners, or whatever only you know how things work. As an outsider, I don't know how things happen in a way that people are least offended or sensitive or whatever. But I think that's what we ought to be working towards, is how do we do this feasibility study? Even if it's just, again, that sort of community level of, what are the possibilities, what are the limitations, where could the money come from, and then we start sort of forming a matrix with that to see what could work. I think we ought to maybe start there, but I think that's a meeting or two away.
In essence, we did that tonight. Very, very basic. But
Sort of.
I believe that there's part of it tonight, and I don't know if I misunderstood, but you don't need a plan to apply for 501c3. You need a mission.
You need, right, but if you're going to be, you need to know, are you going to be a public education
Well,
thing, or are you going to be overnight accommodations? You kind of need to know, generally
I think
speaking,
that
or if you're just going to
I
preserve
disagree.
the
It's very
building.
easy to
Yeah.
get a 501c3. It's not cumbersome. I've done 3 of them in my lifetime. So I'm not saying that that's a choice that this group would want to pursue. They may want to pursue having an umbrella. One of the 501c3s that I started, for example, started the local CASA program here in Northumberland County. Didn't have anything to do with what we did, but we wanted to see it in our county, so we offered up our status. Now they're on their own, and think outside of the box. Maybe there are other 501c3s around here that just would allow us to use their status. That's all you need is the ability to use their status. But it's not